As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD News and DD India.
Good evening, it is 7:30 in the evening in India and we are back again with a spotlight on G20. Our lens today is on the education vertical in G20. In future, this particular vertical is expected to play a very important role in G20 because it touches the lives of people directly and has the potential to build stronger cooperation between G20 member states and contribute positively to the foundation of G20 in the years ahead. Over the past decades, we have seen that the world has seen remarkable expansion of educational opportunities, but fact is that the world is still far from achieving the fourth Sustainable Development Goal of ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. In view of global challenges in terms of school enrollment, dropout, inadequate training, unemployment, a lack of job opportunities, outdated content curricula and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, on India at G20 today we ask, can India as G20 president help G20 member states and other low and middle income countries reimagine and reinvent the educational ecosystems, taking a leaf from its own national education policy unveiled in 2020 so that their education ecosystems can also evolve in a rapidly transforming world. I'm Manu Bhattacharya. Let's get started with the top stories. Austria expresses support for India's G20 presidency. Its foreign minister says it is a good sign that India has the presidency of G20 as it has a tradition of balancing world powers. Says Austria has high expectations from India's presidency as Austria and India share the view that peace can be achieved only at the negotiating table, not in the battlefield. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says as G20 president, India appreciates Austria's insights on several issues. Addressing Indian diaspora in Vienna, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar says that India wanted to use G20 presidency for the benefit of international community and be a voice of fairness and justice and of societies and countries that do not have anybody to speak for them on matters like energy access and food security. Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju says India's leadership is well accepted by the global community and G20 summit in India has to be an occasion to showcase our heritage, soft power and to drive the agenda of the global community. India's chief G20 coordinator Harshvardhan Shringla says India will be hosting over 200 G20 meetings across India through its presidency of G20, where India will present the best of its achievements, its culture and tourism to visiting G20 delegates. Since 2018, education as a vertical has been increasingly getting the attention it deserves in G20 because that year education was first included as an official independent working group in the G20 forum under Argentina's presidency. Having unveiled the national education policy in 2020, India has shown the world that it can reimagine its educational ecosystem so that it is in tune with the changing times, rooted in Indian values and one that can shape students to become conscionable citizens ready to lead 21st century world. The Government of India has said that NEP 2020 is India's guiding light for promoting lifelong learning opportunities and achieving the shared vision of G20. Here's more on India's education priorities under G20 and the road ahead.
A special University Connect event that virtually brought together students from 75 universities across the country on 1st December 2022. The event marked the first day of India's G20 presidency. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Principal Secretary to Prime Minister P.K. Mishra, India's Sherpa to G20 Summit Amitabh Kant and Chief Coordinator for India's G20 presidency Harshvardhan Shringla were among the distinguished speakers at the event. The University Connect event aimed at engaging the youth in G20 activities. School students were also involved through special G20 sessions in various schools. At the event, India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant termed India's youth as the most important constituent of the G20.
India embarks on a journey to take a leadership role at a global level. It will take up the presidency of G20 in a challenging time, but every challenge is a huge opportunity. And during the last 7-8 years, we've demonstrated that every crisis has been used as an opportunity to take the country forward.
While the youth are a very important stakeholder under India's G20 presidency, they also stand to be a direct beneficiary of engagements in the education sector under G20. In November 2022, Union Minister for Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Dharmendra Pradhan, chaired a high-level meeting on the preparations for the G20 summit, where he termed education as one of the priority areas in G20, and India's presidency as an opportunity to share what India has achieved in the education sector, particularly after the launch of the National Education Policy 2020. He exuded confidence that India will present a new template of education, which can be a global model for all emerging economies, and called for involving students, educational and skilling institutions to make the summit a grand success. The minister also suggested showcasing the rich heritage of Indian knowledge systems and making participants aware of the contribution of India to the world. If we go back in time, we find that education was first included as an official independent working group in the G20 under Argentina's presidency in 2018. That enabled a new space within this forum to discuss national and international priorities regarding education policy, as well as to nurture educational initiatives across G20 engagement groups, such as the Think 20, Youth 20 and Civil 20. Under India's presidency, the 4 priority areas under the education sector are ensuring foundational literacy and numeracy, especially in the context of blended learning, making tech-enabled learning more inclusive, qualitative and collaborative at every level, and building capacities, promoting lifelong learning in the context of the future of work, and strengthening research, promoting innovation through richer collaboration. The Education Working Group will be holding seminars on the role of digital technology in education and technical and vocational education and training and future of work, leading to a meeting of G20 education ministers on the 20th of June 2023. The Education Working Group will come out with a G20 Education Working Group report compendium of best practices and a report on the 2 seminar themes, leading to G20 Education Ministers' declaration. Institutions like NCERT, IISc, NSDC, IIT Madras, IIT Hyderabad, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, UNESCO, UNICEF, OECD, etc. are knowledge partners under various priority areas. Addressing the G20 Education Ministers meeting in Bali, the Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan hailed India's National Education Policy 2020 based on foundational principles of access, equity, quality, affordability and accountability as India's guiding light for promoting lifelong learning opportunities and achieving the shared vision of G20. As India seeks to build a more resilient and inclusive education and skilling ecosystem and realize the creative potential of each learner through the implementation of NEP 2020, G20 presidency is an opportunity for it to take along with it, particularly those low and middle income countries that are grappling with the challenge of reinventing their educational ecosystems in a rapidly transforming world. Bureau Report, DD India.
And for perspective, we are being joined by K. Sanjay Murthy. He is Union Secretary, Higher Education, Government of India, and joining us shortly will be Professor Kamakoti, Director, IIT Madras. He's also with us now. Such a pleasure to have the 2 distinguished guests here on India at G20. Mr. Murthy, I'll begin with you. We are aware that the 4 priority areas have been zeroed in on. But what was the thought that went behind delineating those 4 priorities?
First of all, good evening. Thank you so much for having us here. The first priorities, coming to the question as to how these were identified, you must realize that this education group was started in 2018, and we are trying to build up on the topics that were discussed in all the 4 previous months. Now, coming out of the COVID phase period, the loss of learning and the impact that COVID had, it was imperative to see what type of steps needed to be taken by nations itself and across the community of nations, or how do you address this situation? First and foremost was to address the foundational literacy and numerical literacy issue. While under the National Education Program, we have ensured that we will meet those targets by a program called Nipun Bharat, which we are rolling out throughout the country, where we would like to achieve a set of outcomes by the year 2022 and 24. But now, how is this delivered? We assume that technology is a medium to ensure that we will be able to deliver this type of results. So we have brought in the team called Tech-Enabled Learning to deliver this across India as well as the world. Having said that, the other priority that we are looking at is that the future of work is ever changing. What the society, what the industry requires is quietly going under iteration every day. So it is this need that needs to be highlighted such that our education system keeps aligned with what is required by the industry and academia. And the last point is, as we have addressed the challenges that COVID put up on us, the collaborations that were forged during that period, how do you institutionalize it and ensure that we will be able to deliver it in a much better way, has all driven us to these type of 4 priority areas, which we have done in consultation with all the member states here. We've got a questionnaire issued to all the countries who are participating here, and we've got all their overwhelming support to ensure that we discuss this in detail to come out with appropriate strategies which can be shared across the countries.
Okay. Professor Kamakoti, the first seminar on role of digital technology in education and the working group meeting is slated to take place in Chennai. What role would IIT Madras be playing under the education vertical in G20?
So IIT Madras has been one of the leading institutions, specifically in the area of digital education. We have been coordinating NPTEL, the Swayam Prabha platform for quite a significant period of time. The main role that IIT Madras will be playing is that we'll be hosting the seminar, a single day seminar, along with the exhibition involving the different countries, where they will be showcasing some of the technology aided learning, both the processes, the learning processes, and also the different technological aids that they have taken up for the purpose of immersive education. So this will be the highlight of this. So we will have 3 sessions, one session dedicated for the higher education, another for the school education, and another for skill development. And these 3 are very important, also very well elucidated in our National Education Policy 2020. So we have sent a set of questionnaires to the participating countries to basically get details of how technology, specifically digital technology, have influenced their education. What are some of the best lessons, best practices they have learned, and we have also sent an invitation for them to come and showcase some of those technologies, and that will be the highlight of this entire event, single day event.
Interesting. So IIT Madras will be playing a key role as far as the seminar on improving the access of digital technology in the realm of education is concerned. Mr. Murthy, I found it quite unique and interesting that before every education working group meeting, there is a seminar, and there are 4 such themes that have been zeroed in on. So what was the thought that went behind structuring the meetings of the education working group in such a manner that there is a lot of holistic discussion on each of the themes before a meeting takes place?
Yeah, just carrying on to what Professor Kamakoti had mentioned, this seminar or the exhibition that is being organized gives us an opportunity to showcase not only the best practices of what is happening in the country, but also getting the other countries involved by showcasing what they have done, such that each of us can learn on it. While the Madras Chennai seminar will be focusing on tech-enabled learning, the seminar and exhibition that we will organize in Amritsar, which is on the theme based on research and collaboration, we will have the seminar and the exhibition focusing on the best practices that have emerged in that segment. Similarly, in Bhubaneswar, when we are talking about future of work and skill development, we will be opening a platform for these countries and our own country to showcase these best practices. And the ultimate one which we are having in Pune, the topic is on foundation literacy, and this will again give us avenues to showcase our best practices there. But having said that, it is the engagement of all the participant countries which we are trying to solicit, such that all of them are meaningfully engaged in these discussions and ensure that they form a pathway towards a meaningful discussion in the working groups after having seen the best practices across the country and the world.
All right. Professor Kamakoti, do you think that National Education Policy 2020 will be India's model or template to showcase at the education working group meetings here in India? Because there is a lot of commonality between these priorities as well as what NEP proposes. For instance, the NEP says that there should be integration of technology in all levels of education. It also says that India should become the research and innovation hub of the world. And we're seeing a commonality between the priorities in NEP, like I said. So is that going to be a template that India is going to showcase?
Absolutely. So when we look at the global perspective, one of the most important things that is happening across many countries is an equitable access to education at scale and reaching quality education to every deserving student. I think this is highest priority across every nation, and I think NEP 2020 certainly has the framework by which we can achieve this, and that is something that many of our institutions have started implementing, and we are very, very quickly seeing the benefits. I think this is some very interesting best practice model that we will showcase as a part of the G20.
Okay. Mr. Murthy, taking the same thought forward, how will India push the cause of tech-enabled learning? If we come to specifics under G20, we already have our own experiences of tech-enabled learning, and the NEP also places a lot of thrust on it.
Now, the examples again, it is being driven, this particular initiative is being driven by IIT Madras under Swayam and Swayam Prava, wherein numerous children facilitated by the policy framework of NEP are able to choose their subjects of choice irrespective of whether they have faculty in that place or not. The platform is able to provide a child his area of interest, topics for him to enable to learn at his pace. This is a piece that we need to show to the world, the scale at which we are operating, the number of students who are enrolled in it, the number of examinations taken in that. While we have spoken about what has happened in higher education, school education under Diksha platform has again provided innumerous opportunities to students there. These are great strengths that India has in this field and needs to be shown and appreciated by the participant countries, such that we will be able to handhold countries who are in need of such type of technologies to take it and adopt it at their level if they so desire. So I think this is giving us a great opportunity to provide them the platforms that we have upscaled at a scale level for them to see and really appreciate once they are here in this conference.
Okay. Professor Kamakoti, can you share with us some of the best practices, particularly in the context of using digital technology for education, that you would want to showcase? Because I'm sure on a practical level, there will be sharing of experiences and best practices between these G20 member countries. We will also be wanting to reach out to low and middle income countries who would require help in this regard. So any best practice that you can share with us?
Yes, of course. So one of the interesting aspect of NEP 2020 is that we are looking at multiple exit programs, which is extremely useful for both higher education and also skilling. So our BS Data Science program, where we have enrolled close to 16,000 students as on date, will be showcased, wherein we have an age group between 17 to 82, right? And people are coming there for reskilling. There are fresh students, there are people who are working, there are students who are doing another degree and coming back. And so this will be one very interesting case study. And the next option also, the next important thing that we would like to showcase is the Swayam platform, where we have a diverse set of courses, and how these courses are effectively delivered in a digital mode and how the examinations are being conducted. I should also say that 700,000 candidates write the exam every semester, spread across more than 500 plus courses, and how this is managed by a very small team, but in a very effective manner. So this is another very interesting case study. The next case study that we plan to do is on the immersive learning, where how augmented reality and virtual reality can basically give you a lab type of environment, specifically from a skilling perspective and also from basic school education and higher education perspective. Last, we are also working with several hospitals and related education institutions on how we educate physically challenged people, especially people with dyslexia and bipolar disorders. And I think all these four will be very important case studies, which are successful case studies with numbers that we will showcase as best practices.
Right. In specific terms, Mr. Murthy, what is it that we can expect under the priority number 3 and priority number 4, which is promoting lifelong learning in the context of future of work and also promoting research and innovation through greater collaboration?
As you know, national education policy focuses on, upskilling the skills of all our students and as well as people already in the workforce. This is to meet the requirements of not only the country but also the international workforce requirement. Having said that, there is a need to align all the countries' requirements on a common platform. There is a need to have this joint MOU signed with all of them, such that a person who is skilled in India is able to take up a job in their respective countries. So I think these discussions will enable us to take those discussions forward, and I think in terms of skills, that is the most important one. As far as research collaboration is there, already some work is happening. Many of these institutions do have collaborations with us, but there is another regulatory framework or a regulatory practice that UGC has come out with to ensure that there is greater collaboration with universities in India with those abroad. And I think under that framework of regulations, we would like to use this thing to see that we get into more concrete collaborations by engaging both these universities here and abroad while we go forward. This, I think, would be the two great outcomes that we would like to expect in these G20 discussions.
So two important outcomes to look forward to as we go forward over the next few days. We will be discussing sub-verticals within the education vertical as far as the G20 framework is concerned. But we leave it at that for now. Thank you, Mr. Murthy and Professor Kamakoti, for joining us with your views. Let's move on now. Praising India's role in international affairs, especially in promoting multilateralism, Austrian Foreign Minister Alexander Schallenberg said that India is the voice of peace and reason, and Austria will work closely with India in every aspect of development. He lauded India's role and added that peace can only be achieved at the negotiating table, not in the battlefield. Listen in.
We count on India. We count on India as a voice of peace, as a voice of reason. And I may say that India always had a tradition of balancing world powers. And I think it's a good sign that India now holds the presidency of G20. And yes, we have high expectations, and I believe that the Indian voice is an important one because we do share another view. Peace can only be done at the negotiation table, never at the battlefield. And you can be assured that Austria will stand by your side and support whatever action you do, especially focusing on the G20 on food security and other points which are of high necessity for developing countries.
Addressing the same joint press conference, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that India has just assumed the presidency of G20 and appreciated insights that Austria provides to India on several issues.
India, as the Minister noted, has just assumed the presidency of the G20. We have also completed our current tenure as a member of the UN Security Council. As a participant in many international organizations and initiatives, we appreciate the insights that Austria provides on so many issues. Working together more closely in the multilateral domain was one of the many understandings that the Foreign Minister and I reinforced today.
Earlier, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar addressed the Indian diaspora in Vienna. Talking about G20, he said that India wanted to use the presidency for the benefit of the international community and can be a voice of fairness and justice. He also said that India wanted to emerge as the voice of societies and countries that do not have anybody to speak for them on matters related to energy access and food security.
We intend to use our presidency obviously for the benefit of the international community. We have a lot of ideas and thoughts, but in all of this, we also want to be a voice of fairness, of justice, of ensuring that societies and countries who would otherwise get left behind, who do not have somebody else to speak for them, that we emerge as their voice on matters like energy access and food security.
Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju said that India's leadership is well accepted by the global community. G20 summit in India has to be an occasion to showcase a heritage soft power and to drive the agenda for the global community.
Citizens of India must be involved. The ownership of hosting the G20 summit in India has to be an occasion to showcase India's heritage, India's inherent ability to showcase our soft power to the global community, and also to drive the global agenda, to drive the important concerns which India thinks is for the global community, for the humanity. So we have to not only drive the agenda, of course in consultation with the G20 member states, but since India has the presidency, it has the historic opportunity to take the lead role.
And we now leave you with a glimpse of what to expect this month under G20 presidency of India. Stay tuned.
Namaskar. Let me begin by conveying my very best wishes for the new year to all our friends. As you know, our G20 presidency began on the 1st of December last year, and we have already completed 5 meetings in cities such as Udaipur, Bengaluru and Mumbai. We are now geared up to hosting 200 plus meetings in the rest of India, where we want to present the very best of our development, our scientific achievements, our culture, our cuisine, our tourism, to all of the delegates who come from the G20 countries, international organizations and invitee countries. Over the next month or two, we have scheduled meetings in different parts of our country, ranging from Pune to Thiruvananthapuram to Gandhinagar to Kolkata. Effort has been to ensure that our G20 presidency is one in which every Indian citizen can participate. Going by the vision of our Prime Minister, we intend to achieve that through Jan Bhagidari, Jan Andolan mode. Come and be part of this journey to make 2023 a golden year for India.